Hello, and thanks for tuning in. This is going to be the second and possibly final part of Rorschach's response to a 14-year-old girl regarding questions on evolution. As a refresher from last time, please remember that we were talking about the Grand Canyon and how it formed, and that is where Rorschach will pick up here.
I'm going to kind of skip forward a little bit here. You pose the question, what evidence points to evolution in concern to the Grand Canyon? Well, how the Grand Canyon formed and the rock layers we find in the canyon don't necessarily point to evolution, as biological evolution is what I'm assuming you're talking about here. Earth history and geological history and biological evolution are two different things, and creationists often tie the two together. Now, since you posed the question, the evidence for evolution that we find in the Grand Canyon comes in the form of the fossils that we find there. I've asked a few friends of mine to join me in on this and discuss with you some of their favorite evidences for evolution. And so let's hear from them some of the best evidences for evolution.
I know that other evolutionists may have a different theory, but I am using this as one example. We both look at the same evidence, yet arrive at two very different conclusions. What evidence is Dr. Lyle ignoring? You said that he appears not to have internalized the essence of science, an approach to inquiry that depends on testing explanations against data, not fitting data to predetermined conclusions. What evidence points to evolution? Evolution is not proven by data. It is a theory that has not been proven. Everyone has a worldview, a set of your presuppositions, through which we interpret the evidence. This is why we come to two different conclusions when we look at the same evidence.
And so that brings us up to your statement that evolution is not proven by data. It's a theory that has not been proven. As soon as someone makes a statement like this, it is quite clear that they really just don't have any understanding of what it is they're talking about. So let's try to clarify that a little bit for you. A scientific theory is defined as a well-substantiated explanation of some of the aspects of the natural world, based on a body of facts that have been repeatedly confirmed through observation and experiment. Such fact-supported theories are not guesses but reliable accounts of the real world. Some of these theories include germ theory, the theory of gravity, the heliocentric theory, and the theory of evolution.
So, to put this another way, a theory is the best explanation we have for the observations we make based upon the observations we have made. The theory also lets us predict how things will work. So, for example, in Genesis, around chapter 30, verse 38 to about 42, we have the story of Jacob, who took branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and he made them striped or spotted. Then he put the animals in front of the sticks to mate, and allegedly they came out spotted if they were in front of the spotted sticks, and streaked if they mated in front of the streaked sticks. Now, the theory of evolution says that the color of their coats happens because of genetics, not because of sticks. So I challenge you. The theory of evolution says that they'll generally be one of the colors their parents are, or a mixture of them. So if you have access to a white cow and a brown bull, you may try this experiment with the aid of your parents, and you may put spotted sticks in front of these solid brown and white cows, and see if you get a spotted cow that is born, or a cow that is perhaps brown or white, or a color in between. Again, the theory of evolution predicts that animals like dogs, should go into the subspecies based on how we breed them, such that you get Dalmatians and poodles and so on. But according to the Bible, if you want a Dalmatian, you would have to mate it in front of the branches with spots in order to get a dog with spots. Now, you're free again to try this experiment on your own and see if you can use the sticks to control what kind of dogs you get. Or you can see if Dalmatian tend to give birth to Dalmatians. Now, if you do happen to mate two Dalmatians in front of one another with streaked sticks, and you happen to get an Irish setter, please do let us know, because you will win a Nobel Prize.
So now that we've clarified what a scientific theory is, it's not some wild guess as you are assuming in this blog here, the data absolutely points to evolution. Data like comparative anatomy, embryology, the fossil record, DNA comparisons, species distribution, and observations of evolution made both in the laboratory and outside the laboratory, as well as the predictive power of evolution, is all data that points to one singular conclusion.
Moving a bit further ahead. Thank you for continuing the discussion. I enjoy the chance to discuss this topic. What study was done that proved the Earth was billions of years old?
Well, I think we talked about that in part 1, where we discussed radiometric dating. And yeah, so I think that question has been thoroughly answered. If not, do check the links to video 1, and it will be.
You said the age of the universe is established from the rate of recession of distant galaxies as 13.8 billion years. But that again assumes uniformity by using the recession of galaxies as the basis for your assumption. You assume that the recession rate has been the same in the past as it is in the present. You have not yet provided justification for uniformity in your worldview. The essence of my argument is that without God, you have no basis for assuming that the future will be like the past. Just gonna break character for a second here. Even with a God, you have no basis for assuming that, because of revelations, and because God just created it one day. You have no basis for assuming that the future will be like the past. No complexity and the appearance of harmony being incompatible with random chance. You agreed that the fundamental rules of nature may have changed, again breaking character, exactly like it happened in the story of Genesis, or when God handed down the commandments from the mount, or when he stopped the sun in the sky for 3 days. Even with a God, it doesn't matter. Back into character. Although you said that there is no basis for claiming arbitrary changes, exactly there is no basis for saying such a thing. It would be crazy to say that the natural laws could change. Breaking character again. Yes, that's what we're saying. Causing the sun to stand still for 3 days, while there is nothing but darkness, would be crazy. But let's go back to Rorschach.
Exactly. There is no basis for saying such a thing. It would be crazy to say that natural laws could change. Well, in his first response, he gave an example of the black hole where natural laws can change. So that statement right there is untrue. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to give you 2 premises. I'm going to say that, okay, without a God, there can't be uniformity. Now, there's a myriad of reasons why there could be, and why we don't need a God for this, but for the sake of argument, and to prove a point, I'm going to give that to you. Okay, so God is the reason for uniformity. I'm also going to give you your second premise, that natural laws can never change. Okay, so you think that those 2 things prove the universe is only 6,000 years old. Well, let's look at that for a second. And so the speed of light is 186,282 miles a second. And so if I was to give you your premise that natural law can never change, the speed of light can never change. Now, a light year is the distance that light, traveling at that speed, can reach in a single year. Now, if we observe a star that is, say, 4 million light years away, that means it took the light of that star 4 million years to reach us. Already your 6,000 year timeline collapses at a mere 4 million years. But what if I was to tell you that the furthest distance we can see is about 13.8 billion light years? This shows evidence that the universe must be about 13.8 billion years, because at that distance it took the light from that star 13.8 billion years to reach us.
The way we figure this out is really actually kind of neat. We use the spectrum of light. We can take in a laboratory and isolate, for example, hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas will give us a very unique spectrum, which is a pattern of colors and dark areas which can be viewed through a spectrograph or a spectroscope. So when we look at stars, we can tell based on the patterns they make what kind of gases are in them. Now we know, based on our observations in the laboratories, as well as looking at stars that we know how far away they are, like the sun and the next nearest stars to us, we can see, as the stars get further away, the pattern stays the same, but it changes where it is along the spectrum. Now, if the stars were getting closer to us, then we would see it shift toward the blue side, because it would mean that the waves are moving faster than when they left the star. Similarly, if it's shifted toward the red, which is what we see in every direction, then we know the stars are moving away from us. And based on a lot of fancy math, we can extrapolate this all the way back to the beginning of the universe. So the distance the stars are from us, more or less, is literally how old the universe is. And again, I'm keeping this simple, so let's go to the next point.
And so continuing on with this, even if, as atheists, we are completely wrong and there is a God, and even if that God is your God, and on top of that, let's say that under no circumstances whatsoever can the laws of nature ever change, as is your premise. How does either of those two things prove a 6,000 year timeline? When just looking at the speed of light and the distances that we can observe instantly disproves this. Now, I know you're going to flip open to, creationresearch.com or whatever Christian website you prefer, and you're going to type in and find an answer, and it's going to boil down to God just did it that way. Well, that doesn't really make sense, does it? That a timeless, spaceless entity that's existed for always and always will exist and knows everything would limit himself to just the last 6,000 years. Now, does it? After all, if God is all-knowing, then wouldn't he know that we would observe starlight and come to the conclusion that the universe is billions of years old? If so, wouldn't that be a deliberate move on God's part to deceive us? So either you're accusing God of intentionally deceiving people, or you are simply ignoring all of the evidence that points to the fact this universe is billions of years old.
And that's going to be it for today. Seeing as how we're no longer responding to questions about evolution, I would say this is where we're going to end this two-part series. Now, if there is positive feedback and we would like to continue this discussion, I am more than happy to do that. But we aren't actually discussing evolution at this point, so that's going to be it. Again, if you enjoyed that, be sure to check out my channel where I talk about all nature of things. If you're not watching this on my channel, that is. Go ahead and like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share it. If you have opinions, let us know. That's the whole point. And as always, this has been Reverend JR, signing off.